Greetings, peace and blessings, peace and blessings. Welcome to another edition of Revolutionary Hoodoo, New Orleans Voodoo Secrets and Recipes. Greetings, Vivian Mixon. Thank you for being present with us tonight. We're trying a new setup, so please help me out. Can you hear me? Can you hear me clearly, and can you see me? We also have two important special guests that are here with me. Toni Val Martinez, Queen Mother Toni Val Martinez, but she has dropped off of the switchboard. Thank you. I appreciate that. And also community activist and organizer Kim P. Ford. Now, both of them were here seconds ago, but now they've dropped off the screen. So if you give me a second, I'm going to send them a text and see if I can get them back. We certainly want to open up this space to all things voodoo, hoodoo, ATR, traditional African-based religious systems. But we also want to talk about activism, organizing, and utilizing that power beyond just our, personal and immediate needs, but combating the wickedness that we're having to address in our society today. Queen Mother Val Martinez has rejoined us. Test your microphone. Let me see if I can hear you.
Peace and blessings.
Yeah, okay. Peace and blessings. I can hear you now.
Yeah, I had to log out and get back in.
Okay. And let me send Kim P. Ford a text and see if we can get her back on screen. But we certainly appreciate you, Vivian and Tariq, for coming in and joining and supporting us. I also want to take a moment while it's on the tip of my tongue to remind you all to support our second annual National New Orleans Voodoo Day. This is indeed a sibling ceremony to what was created in Ouida, Benin, West Africa, that takes place every January 10th, the National Voodoo Day in Ouida, Benin. We have partnered with them. We've also created a partnership with the nation of Haiti and the authentic voodoo practitioners in Haiti. So the second annual New Orleans Voodoo Day promises to be so much more spectacular than our opening event last year. And we invite you to plan, to come, to share, to support. This year, due to the Super Bowl and some other semantics in terms of the calendar, the event will be April 5th, will be our symposium at Xavier University with international dignitaries present, art, vendors, food, social gathering. And then on April 6th, beginning at the river and culminating in Congo Square, will be our actual day of commemoration and celebration for the National New Orleans Voodoo Day. That website and information is streaming at the bottom of the screen. That's www.v like Victor, O, D like David, OUDAY.org. And we invite you to come, to participate, to join us. And if you can't join us, to certainly consider sponsorships and donating support to this event. For our sponsorships, we have very specific tiers that will grant you advertisements, banners, promotion, right along with our events and the subsequent events that will be culminating with National New Orleans Voodoo Day. So we invite you to go to our website, www.voodooday.org, VODOUDAY. and get more information and begin to make your plans. You still have time to be here for April of this year. Okay, I'm waiting on our activist and community organizer, Kim P. Ford. She said they're forcing her to uh, set up her account again. So she'll be with us momentarily. And so I also want to invite you all who are listening both here in YouTube, but also on other platforms where this is streaming right now. You are also welcome to join us, provided you are prepared to unmute your mic and turn on your webcam. Otherwise, I will do my best to monitor the questions or comments that will be coming in the chat box. My co-host will assist me in doing so, and we certainly appreciate your participation. With this sort of being our first show together collectively as a group for 2025, and for my regular and returning listeners, this will be a little bit different of a platform. It certainly will be what you know and have gotten used to and expect from me and House of the Divine Prince and Hoodoo Central in a podcasting space. Many of you know that Blog Talk Radio has gone defunct. There will be no more Blog Talk Radio after January 2025. So this will be my new base ongoing platform. My intentions are to be here every night at 9 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time. Toni Val Martinez will be co-hosting. Kim P. Ford will be co-hosting. And come Monday, we will also have another member of our administrative team and co-creator of the annual
You froze, Divine Prince.
and many other world spiritual practices and traditions. And she will be coming on beginning Monday night as a regular host of the podcast. So we're starting off great in this new dispensation. And I want to invite you, Vivian and Tariq, to share and like and support the platform. Also invite your active participation. Again, you are welcome to open your mics and turn on your camera, but also invite others to come. And let's really educate and re-educate about what voodoo is in all of its denominations and demonstrations. I like to say worldwide, voodoo worldwide. For indeed, there is the parent, if you will, West Africa, and many of us in the tradition believe that voodoo really arrived from the East. As
It froze again.
may have, oh, okay, it might be temporary. The freezing might be temporary. Many of us understand that the lotions, potions, spells, incantations, the worshiping of the sun and the moon, the understanding of the constellations and the universe may very well have predated us in ancient Egypt, Kemet, Nubia, Lemuria, and civilizations prior. But we now understand Ile Ife to sort of be the Mecca, if you will, of modern day voodoo as we now know it in West Africa, extending into Ouida, extending into Nigeria, Ghana, Cameroon, Cote d'Ivoire, Ivory Coast, and then brought to the so-called Americas by way of the transatlantic slave trade. So we honor it and acknowledge the Haitian footprint of Voodoo, Vodou, but also Central and South American footprints of Voodoo, and certainly the Louisiana Voodoo, New Orleans footprint of Voodoo. So we want to create a safe space to educate and re-educate about Voodoo worldwide while creating a space for dialogue and interaction between all of the branches to our National New Orleans Voodoo Day. Again, beginning in Benin, Ouida, West Africa, certainly Haiti, New Orleans, Louisiana, and then worldwide. We're open to conversation about 21 divisions and Dominican voodoo. We're open up to conversations about the voodoo footprint in other regions of the global world now. We always want to be mindful of those ancestors who showed us that we now stand upon and have our support and give us our meaning, both figuratively and literally. We understand that science now accepts and agrees to something that we've always understood in the Aboriginal, indigenous realm of spirituality and tradition, that the dead never leave us, that our beloved ancestors, good or bad, never leave us. They indeed are encoded in our very DNA. And science has demonstrated that ancestral memory survives in the blood. It doesn't just show up as those ancestral curses we know of as diabetes and heart problems and other health anomalies, but certainly our gifts, our skills, those things that make us great, those things that make us glow, are also deposited by those who lived before us. So, in participation in the National Voodoo Day, it unites and links us globally throughout the Pan African diaspora around the one thing that we all have in common, which is our ancestors. Certainly, the demonstration of the spirit, spirituality, tradition, culture, food, religion manifests uniquely and differently regionally and geographically from location to location and place to place. So we could waste time arguing semantics of how many U's and how many O's. We could waste time arguing semantics about whose voodoo is more authentic or whose voodoo is more powerful, understanding that we all share the same root, we all share the same parents and grandparents, and we all seek to develop and walk in the destiny that is unique and specific to us as individuals, certainly to our bloodline, our families, our lineages, individually and collectively. And then the power of voodoo and the reach of voodoo today in 2025. Let's understand there's been a great falling away, if you will, universally from organized religious systems, particularly those that have a documented footprint within the enslavement and the oppression of people worldwide. And so, particular generations, particularly those generations younger than my own, I'm Generation X. Uh, Queen Mother Toni Val is Generation X. Let's see. Kim P. Ford is back with us. Let's see if we can get her on screen. It says your devices are not connected. Kim P. Ford, I don't know why. So it's not connecting to your mic and your camera. We're going to get it worked out. If not tonight, we're going to get it worked out. I don't know. I don't know, beloved. Yeah. And so I'll just continue until we can get some kind of communication from her. If you can hear me, Kim, and you need to text me, we can always communicate by text if I can help you figure out what's going on. Greetings, S. Marie. Greetings and salutations, beloved, and welcome to the room. Thank you for coming and joining this sacred space. I've kind of been sort of reintroducing the platform, and then I'm going to step aside and give Toni Val Martinez the opportunity to introduce and reintroduce herself to the community in the conversation. And if we can get activist Kim P. Ford on, I can see you on the screen, but your mic and your camera are not connected. So I can't like put you up. So there's still something, I don't know if you're using the old account or the new account, but you need to connect your devices, your camera and your mic. Go into your settings and make sure you're connecting your devices. And so as S. Marie has been with me for some years, as well as many others who are listening now, and they've sort of gotten used to my previous format, but this platform will be a little more open to diversity and communication from within in the group and the participants. Certainly those of the bloodline and heritage and lineage of Voodoo and in all of its manifestations, Hoodoo, Conjure, Root Work, Orisha, Seven African Powers, etc. We certainly invite our Latinx community members to participate. Ifa, Yoruba, Orisha, Santeria, Lukumi, Nago practitioners, certainly all those who seek an interest and have a connection to the National New Orleans Voodoo Day, and certainly the National Voodoo Day as it is manifesting in Ouida, Benin, by way of DNA, by way of genetics, by way of inheritance. So, Toni Val, if you will, I'll give you a moment to speak your piece and introduce yourself and get acquainted with the audience while I try and see behind the scenes if I can get MP4 together.
Hi, greetings, everyone. My name is Toni Martinez. I have two names. That's why it's pronounced Toni Val. I have lived in New Orleans basically all of my life. I was a product of adoption, and I was adopted by an older couple who were born in 1900. And my adoptive mother, who I call my mother, practiced voodoo, which she learned from her mother, who learned from her mother. Now, coming up as a child, I didn't know it was voodoo at the time. I thought everybody did it, and it was just a daily way of life. As I got older and start realizing what was classified as voodoo, I was like, I did that. I grew up doing that. And I was like kind of shocked. I was like, oh, wow, I know how to do that. My mom taught me how to do that. I know what that's for. So I have been a practitioner in my household. My children grew up with the knowledge, just like I grew up with the knowledge, because that's how I ran my house, like my mother ran her house. I was active on the scene as far as protesting, attending meetings, being a community advocate. Mostly, I didn't join groups. That was just me. I was a part of a lot of groups. I walked with a lot of groups. I just didn't join those groups. I was versatile. Spiritually, I am Rastafarian. I believe in the tenets of Rastafarianism. I also may be the only Rastafarian you know that does not partake of the herb. I feel that really I'm already there and thinking due to talking to people when they were on the holy herb. I'm a staunch advocate for legalizing it. My parents used it. They didn't smoke it. They drank it in a tea. My mother for her health. And I'm just now getting back really into community activism. I have great grandchildren now, and I want to pass the traditions on to them. Children today ask more questions than children in my day. I would never question my mother as to why we doing this, what it's gonna do, how you know it's gonna work. That's one of my grandsons. I just did it. I just did what I was told and shown. I've
I think
known that
that's forgive me for interrupting. I think that's important because there's a bit of a gap in information for particularly our generation, Generation X, in terms of understanding that there was a presence, a footprint of the practice, a tradition within our families. But unlike our Latinx cousins, it wasn't always out in the open or as organized as we do see in other communities. And that's important to note when we are trying to understand and even define what is voodoo. What is voodoo? And voodoo is certainly ethno-cultural practice and tradition. It certainly believes, it certainly begins with a belief in a divine power, a divine entity, a divine being that creates all reality. But then that divine being, that divine creator's presence, very body, very organs, if you will, being dispersed out throughout creation and therefore being present in nature, certainly within our own flesh and blood and body and spirit, but indeed in nature, in the plants, the herbs, the roots, the trees, from which we not only get our very body, but our substance, our healing, our
it froze again.
nutrients and grandparents of our generation, Generation X, often had strong connections to roots, root working, conjure, voodoo, hoodoo. But as Queen Mother Toni has shared, that language was not used. Those words were not used. And therefore that understanding of the unified connection with voodoo worldwide wasn't understood. By design, we were taught that we were something separate from Haitians and Haiti. And we have only to look at the Haitian Revolution to understand the root of not only the disparaging hatred and demification of voodoo and various voodoo worldwide practices and traditions, but also sort of the attempt to block and stop any revolutionary behavior and activity from within our community, and particularly from within the population here in America, the descendants of enslavement. It was indeed the Bois Cayman voodoo ceremony that led to the activation and revolutionary act of the Haitian Revolution that led to those Creole Haitian populists moving to Louisiana and ultimately to the U.S. and creating a panic among the white slave owners and the white oppressing class. That indeed, if we were allowed to gather and drum and chant and invoke what they saw as voodoo and dark magic and witchcraft, that we would develop what they saw as a disease, and that disease was a desire for freedom, a desire for liberty, and a desire for escape from the system of enslavement. So you really cannot separate voodoo from its political, religious, spiritual, cultural footprint and demonstration, but also from its revolutionary, liberating, pre-civil right oriented footprint in history, its lineage of freeing us from that which would otherwise crush us, oppress us, and keep us down. I'm still waiting on our third co-host to check in with us. I don't know why she's having such a difficult. She says she's off and she's going to try and come back with us. Her voice is important to the conversation because, just as is Sister Toni, beloved activist Kim P. Ford, also very fiery queen, warrior woman, and we certainly appreciate her voice and her contribution to the conversation. And so for my new listeners and those who are going to be joining us now, moving forward on this new 9 p.m. Central Standard Time journey, that will be the foundation for this podcast. Certainly the discussion of voodoo, New Orleans hoodoo secrets and recipes, as we have lived it and experienced it, as we have learned it, and many of are now initiated into more organized systems. I am also in organized Haitian voodoo, both here in the city and within the community of Haiti, and now becoming a part of organized system in Ouida, Benin. So we certainly want to thank you, beloved. Our activist and community organizer, Kim P. Ford, is in the chat. We'll try again on another night to get her mic and her camera present, but she is with us in the chat. She is one of our co-hosts. Certainly, if you have any questions, comments, throw that in the chat for us. We'll be more than happy to address that. And anything that you type in there, Kim, TreeShaker's radio talk show, I'll just read it out for you here on the mic. So again, we're building sort of this new format, this new platform around ATR, traditional African-based religious systems, sort of beginning with voodoo as we understand it in its worldwide footprint and demonstration, but certainly from its historic presence and demonstration for creating the lane for revolution and revolutionary acts and advocacy in the new world as we continue to fight against something that, I think we had gotten a little complacent in, a little lethargic in. Some of us aren't voting or have lost the context of why we should even vote. We don't march and organize and participate, some would say, as we did in the 1950s and 60s and 70s, some of which my panel of co-hosts actually witnessed. I certainly won't disrespect the women with me and share their dates unless they choose to. But I'm a child of the 60s. I was born in the year that the cartoon The Jetsons was created. Bewitched, the TV show, was created. We're talking about 1966. My Favorite Martian was still on TV, both black and white and in color. Mr. Ed, the talking horse, was on TV, both black and white and in color. So I was born at a crossroads, if you will, of pop culture, of history, of revolution, of revolutionary demonstration, in America, but certainly in the Black community. I would have been a baby, a child of civil rights. I would have been a baby, a child of Black power. I'm Black and I'm proud. James Brown, I'm Black and I'm proud. Soul Train was my religion. You had to watch Soul Train, every Saturday afternoon, and it was a neighborhood thing. Whoever had the TV, because everybody didn't have a device back then at that time, but whoever had your TV, you'd gather up at their place, and we'd watch and enjoy Soul Train, and we'd learn the new dances, and we'd watch the new fashions, and we, enjoy the Afro Sheen, Ultra Scene, and all those Black products. I have a cousin who was a model in Ebony Fashion Fair, which at the time was a all Black product, all Black brand fashion show that traveled the nation and traveled the world, exhibiting Black products. From hair to face and skin to fashion and certainly culture. I grew up in a house that had Jet Magazine and Ebony Magazine on the coffee table weekly as they came in through the mail. I grew up in Chocolate City, what we now know as the DMV. I was born in Chicago, and my father, being the polygamist that he was, he had a family in more than one state, in more than one city, in more than one region. And so my family, my mother and my sister and I, Wapani, were moved to the DC, Maryland, Virginia area. We called that Chocolate City back then. And we weren't allowed to watch programs that didn't have Black people on it, unless it was the news maybe or a documentary. But I grew up on Tony Brown's Journal. I grew up on Sesame Street. A lot of you don't realize Sesame Street was production that was created specifically for Black and brown people. That was the reasoning for Sesame Street from the very beginning. So the introduction of characters of DEI, diversity, equity, inclusion, predates the language, the wording that we're now using, and often being used as a slant, if you will, towards us. The activity of unifying within our community, but then making a place and a name and creating a voice proceeds Trump, proceeds, the Reagan era. And so we are in a very unique time right now, a very unique season. And I really look forward to being able to have TreeShaker's radio. She's trying again right now. It still says your microphone and your camera are not recorded, because this is right up her alley in terms of advocacy, activism, and organizing. And we've got to begin to organize once again now, much like we did in the 50s, the 60s, and 70s, but certainly with new technology and a new twist. We have tools available to us now that were not available to us during that season. And though I don't necessarily support, all of the details being shared in social media or online, we're certainly going to still have to gather in communities, much like a beehive within your community, within your neighborhood, and then find ways to communicate across regional and neighborhoods and borders, if you will, safely and securely. But we certainly have tools for mobilizing, educating, re-educating, communicating that weren't available to previous generations. So this is a new thing that we are stepping into at this time. Some people would wish for and support it, sort of this, Trump presidency, And it sounds very familiar to what I heard when Reagan came into office. You know, people started counting the numerology in Ronald Reagan's first, middle, and last name, and saw that 666 forming, and began painting him as, you know, ushering in the Antichrist, if you will, and the systems of the last day. That was the talk during Ronald Reagan's presidential uh, office and campaign and subsequent terms. And so it's very familiar to those of us, Generation X and older, who sort of lived through that. But we can also see the nuances that make this present time differently. Your YNs, different, very different, you know, than what we have experienced in the past. And certainly the availability of information and how we're able to reach our community through digital information is unprecedented. And so we're going to be put in a position to create innovation in communication, innovation in community building, innovation in activism. And we all have our lane, if you will. We all have our realm of expertise or specialty that we are best adapt in. Sister Toni might, you know, be better adept at the grassroots level and organizing, you know, on the ground with other mothers and grandmothers and big mamas and aunties and uncles throughout the diaspora, if you will. My range is certainly voodoo, and how voodoo, much like it did in Bois Cayman ceremony, ritual ceremony in Haiti, and how it is able to break the generational curses, break the chains on our minds, our bodies, and our spirits, and give us a organized system of understanding to navigate the spirit realm. For those of us who understand that this is more than just flesh and blood, but we fight against those principalities, those powers, those rulers of the darkness of this world, spiritual wickedness in high places. Some of you all understand that language and understand that we are operating in a multi-dimensional reality. Uh, you're not losing your mind. You're not dreaming or imagining. And in your imagining, you're only seeing what is absolutely the reality. I like to throw a little quantum metaphysics in there every now and then. In order for our reality to be as we understand it, we must be operating in at least 11 dimensional spaces simultaneously. And time, as we know it, which is cyclical or circular, like a crystal ball, time does not travel in a line. That's an illusion. And we look at a wall clock.
Froze again. You froze again, Divine Prince.
So if you can hear me, bear with me. I think I'm unfrozen.
Yes, you are.
Okay. Thank you, Val. I appreciate that. I don't know why we're having such complications getting TreeShakers in, but we'll get it together. We'll get it together. And we certainly look forward to other guests coming on as we continue to move forward. So as I was saying with the
It's
at
froze
least
again, and it's like what my mama would say, ain't nothing but the devil.
ain't nothing but the devil, you know.
Don't want us having this conversation.
No. But we're off to something great here. We already know it. I can feel it. I can see it. I can sense This time moving forward, but we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Kempy Ford she's still trying, but I don't know what's going on. It's in your settings, beloved. At the bottom of the screen, settings. Attach your mic, attach your camera. Maybe try a different device. I'm actually using my laptop. Last night when I Zoomed with you, I was using my phone, but tonight I'm using my laptop. And it seems to be, except for the temporary lagging and freezing, it seems to be doing okay. But we'll get you in, Kim P. Ford. And so, yes, we live in a multi-dimensional reality. It's a reason why you feel somewhat overwhelmed that this seems to be coming at you in all directions. Love relationships, family relationships, career, economics, finances, certainly technology and in our gadgets, every dimensional realm of existence is being tapped right now in order to reach us, confuse us, distract us, either empower us or disempower us in some way. So in Voodoo and indeed in Ifa, Yoruba Ifa, there's an understanding of Ori. In the Yoruba language, we say Ori, which is a literal and figurative reference to your head, your highest chakra state, your highest sense of consciousness and development, your God self, if you will. And without the clarity, the balanced nature, the purity of your own head, then it makes it challenging for any other force outside yourself to sort of interrupt your will and sort of bring balance to any particular scenario. Your head must be open. Your head must will it. It is why angels can sort of intervene on the behalf of what Grandma used to say, angels can intervene on the behalf of babies and fools, but certainly cannot override our will and our ability to make conscious will. And for we are co-creators with the divine. We are co-creators with God, with the goddess. And so in the development of our heads, we say lave tete in Haitian, Creole, Voodoo, lave tete, to wash, to cleanse, to bring balance, to feed, to fill the head. We then can operate in our true God consciousness, in our true selves, both on earth and as it is in heaven, and begin to overcome the challenges of the season, the challenges of the time that we are now entering and existing within. So we're all going to need to come together. We're all going to need to rely upon one another, maybe perhaps in a way that we haven't had to in the last 50 years of an illusion of independence and control and gaining autonomy, if you will. The idea that the articles can be overturned, affecting our very liberties as Black people in America, has really changed the conversation politically, religiously, spiritually, and certainly as it relates to grassroots conversation, organizing, and activism. Kim, you're just not with me, beloved. Your mic and your camera are just not connecting. So you may need to reboot your devices. You may need to even try a different device. Um, Certainly, if not now, tomorrow night. We've got just about 10 minutes left in the show, and then we'll come back again tomorrow night, 9 p.m. Central, 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Yes, I can see you in the private chat. So yes, the private chat is working for anyone who ever needs to communicate with me during the live broadcast um, through the StreamYard platform. The private chat is working. And I'm also seeing you in the public conversation, Tree Shakers. So you go ahead and reboot. We got about 10 minutes left. And then we invite you back into the conversation. So, what is voodoo? For my listeners, for my active chat participants, what is voodoo and what does voodoo look like and mean to you? For me, I first heard voodoo. I didn't see a spelling, of course, at that time as a toddler, maybe 2 years of age, and voodoo was being discussed on my father's side of the family. My father's side of the family hails from Bogalusa, Louisiana, and then at some point, right before Bogalusa became a incorporated city, they moved up Delta into Louise, Mississippi, and still remain in that region till this day. Certainly a large branch of my great grandparents' family, my great aunts and great uncles, and their subsequent children moved to St. Louis, Chicago, Detroit, California, and Washington, D.C. during what we know as the Great Migration. But I still have family in the Louise, Mississippi area who were picking cotton, who were enslaved, who were on plantations as late as the 1970s, as late as the 1970s. And then their land was given under to eminent domain, and they were forced out of the quarters across the highway in manufactured homes. And so there's still family relatives that live there in that town, completely surrounded 360 degrees by cotton fields and soybean fields and corn fields. But that is where I first heard and understood voodoo within the dynamics of my family. And I had a great uncle, Uncle Nephus. His legal name was Nephus, and he was said to have been blinded at a very young age as an older teen by a woman utilizing voodoo. And for whatever reason, she applied some herb, some potion, some concoction to the inside of his hat while he was eating. And he put the hat on and went back out into the cotton fields and the sweat came down, and he subsequently lost his sight. So he was blind all of my life, blind predating my birth. And so I always knew him as blind Uncle Nephus. He lived in a house that extended off of a great aunt's house, great aunt LV. LV was her legal name, the letters LV. And his portion of the house extended out on posts out into the swamp in Louise, Mississippi. Louise is Mississippi Delta territory. You got red clay, but you've also got swampy bayous, much like you would see and experience in much of Louisiana, even portions of Gullah Geechee land, the Carolinas, and swampy portions of Georgia. And so his house always extended out over the swamp, which as kids was always really interesting to us. And then he had a portion built that he housed a candy store where he sold penny and nickel and dime candy, but also ice cream bars, popsicle sticks, those things, at that time that cost a penny, 5, 10, 25 cents, and again, this was the late 60s going into the 70s for my generation. And he was completely blind. And it was entertaining for us to see his ability to navigate that little store and how he had it set up. But also he could feel and understood, the money exchange that was taking place. And that was, interesting and intriguing to kids. Many of us who are now living up north in these big cities, sort of cut off from rural areas, that summer vacation, that holiday trip that we took every year, usually around Independence Day, Juneteenth, usually around June, late June into July. Some family would stay a month, some would stay, 2 weeks. It certainly would depend on the job you had at that time. Some of the family was in manufacturing, some worked in warehouses. My mother was a teacher and an educator. My father worked for the government at the time. And so that would often affect how much time we would actually spend in Mississippi. And certainly the conversation of voodoo would come up almost every single time. And there was that portion of the family who were becoming evangelical, who were becoming Christianized, who were becoming Jehovah's Witnesses, who were becoming Catholic in some cases, who disparaged that conversation and who were against that conversation. And then the conversation often took place around, bid whist and domino and liquor and cigarettes. So there was always that excuse to also shoo the kids, out of the room and away from the conversation. So it was always a combination of the two things that would prevent you from getting the fullness of what was being said, unless you were, 18, 19 or over or of a mature age. And even then, you would often have to press for details as it related to voodoo, hoodoo, conjure. But it was pretty much an open conversation, at least in my family, and begin to get more silenced from the late 70s going into the early 1980s. I had a couple of great aunts who were very much into Reverend Ike at that time. And Reverend Ike sort of represented another face of Black religion, and church, and was really teaching conjure and root work and hoodoo, but also mind magic, the power of the mind, the power of the spoken word, the power of belief about yourself and what you have and people, places, and things, around you. And was, on the one hand was kind of laughed at like a Peter Popoff or your Jim and Tammy Faye Baker, and was seen as sort of clownish religious entertainment. But on the other hand, there were those of us who really were grasping his hoodoo conjure concepts, as hidden as they were. I know my great aunt Vicky, Vera Hunt was her legal name.
Froze again.
That ministry alive. But if she was put in a position of babysitting us as children, we were often exposed to and saw Reverend Ike, in his fullness while my parents were away, while sitting at the knee of Aunt Vicky. Thank you, S. Marie, for your comment. She said she discovered the name of what I had instinctive knowledge of a few years ago was Voodoo. She never felt she belonged with any other group. She's a 1980s baby, and so in her family, they were not taught about it at all. yeah, I think a lot of the Black families kind of went silent in the 80s. Reaganomics, um, that whole branding culture, designer jeans, labels, accessing products for your children kicked in. Certainly, there was the crack epidemic of the 1980s that also began to erode Black families, community block parties, family reunions, family gatherings. Because even if the crack epidemic didn't affect you personally and directly, it might have been in your family, in your neighborhood, or in your community. And we began to see families retreat at that time. Big Mama stopped letting you go to summer parties or hang out at other folk house the way they did back in the day, because the trust factor was no longer there. Everyone was becoming suspect, even more than what we're seeing today. And so that also, had an effect in the 1980s on the breakdown in the family and the communication of these practices and these traditions. But certainly the religiosity reached an all-time height in the 1980s. They say when a people are impoverished or under financial distress, in Western culture, they will often seek religion as some sort of bounce back. The 1980s was the birthing, if you will, uh, of the prosperity ministry. Uh, Reverend Ike certainly could be seen as maybe a progenitor of prosperity based ministry, but we saw it in full effect in the 1980s. I know my church, Church of God in Christ, and the Church of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ, uh, Bishop Eddie Long, not the Eddie Long that you know, Bishop Eddie Long of 9th and O Street, Washington, D.C., Bishop Vincent, Bishop Bonner, all of those apostolic and evangelical and Pentecostal bishops of the 1980s that were feeding um, the prosperity ministry were also feeding religious propaganda that was, witch hunting and gay bashing and belittling women, uh, siphoning off the power of women. They were still preaching and teaching that women were to remain silent, if you will, in the community and in the church. And these were prevalent teachings within our communities in the 1980s, leading to subsequent, generations that followed the 90s, the 2000s, the 2010s, and the 2000 teens, and certainly now where we are today. And part of the pushback at the political and cultural level to that has been conservatism, and right-wing conservatism, both within our community and outside of our community. It's rather difficult to talk about red and blue, Republican and Democrat politics, government, without talking about religion, and the role that religion now plays in that, irregardless of the so-called separation of church and state, and even for those who consider themselves non-religious, particularly.
You froze again, Divine Prince. Still frozen. Well, I've seen to have lost the Divine Prince. The show is winding down. I would like to thank everyone who joined the show. I would like to say, even though voodoo was not spoken of in your family, you can best believe they use some aspect of voodoo. You just have to know it when you come across it, like I did, and saying, oh, that's voodoo. We did that. I grew up doing that. I know what that is. I know what that's for. So I guess the show is over.
No, I'm back.
Oh, you back?
Yeah, I got booted and all of that kind of stuff. It froze up, but I'm back. And thank you for holding it together for me. Um, I really appreciate that, Sister Toni. The show would have been ending at 8 o'clock anyway. So I look forward to seeing and meeting with you all again tomorrow night at 9 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time. That's 10 p.m. Eastern. I believe that's 6 p.m. Mountain, and that might be 7 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. And we'll try it again on tomorrow night, and hopefully we'll have some improved internet service, and without less freezing and breaking up. So thank you so much, TreeShakers Radio, my co-host, TreeShakers Radio, who's Ken P. Val Ford. Thank you so much, Toni Val Martinez, Sister Shikamana, my co-host. I certainly appreciate you. Thank you so much, S. Marie, The Alchemist. Thank you so much. Those are regular listeners to my podcast over the last decade or more. Vivian Mixum, another regular listener. Tariq Lopez, thank you so much. And I look forward to joining you here again on tomorrow night at 9 p.m. U.S. Central Standard Time for more revolutionary hoodoo, New Orleans voodoo secrets and recipes. And I invite you to visit both my website, houseofthedivineprince.com, but more importantly, our National New Orleans Voodoo Day website at www.voodooday.org, where you can get more information, support us, donate, join us for our annual National New Orleans Voodoo Day, which will be April 5th and April 6th, 2025. Until then, remembering that all is truly and indeed a blessing. Ashe, Asheo, and Ashe.
Ashe.